Does everybody get that?
Yeah.
You know what happened? All right. I know it's not very pleasant, but that illustrates quite handily the problem with communication is the illusion that it occurred. The supervisor told Boudreaux, go clean the Pelicans. Boudreaux was doing what he thought he should do, cleaning the Pelicans. Except cleaning the Pelicans to Boudreaux didn't mean the same thing that it meant to the supervisor. And so one of the things that you have to learn about communication is that communication requires context. Communication requires that you look at the person that you're communicating to and say, what context are they hearing these words? Half the time that we have a fight or that we don't understand each other is because I guarantee you it's the words that I'm using mean one thing to you and another thing to you and another thing to you. And so it becomes important that we get all the words kind of on the same page. Else we're going to have people coming back saying, you want rice with that? And they won't have done anything close to what you intended. Did he hear the words? And, you know, we get into this, we hear this all the time. You know where we hear it? This, not hear it, but we see it all the time. Have you ever typed in something to your, something that has spell check and realized, particularly on your iPhone, type it and realized, that's not what I intended to say. That word was spelled correctly, but it's not what I meant to say. The problem with communication is the illusion that occurred. And in government, half the fight is trying to get in the room with the people that you need to communicate with to make sure we are all on the same page. And that means context. Everybody, let's get on the same page. That means, okay, you understand what cleaning means, right? Do not assume that he understands what cleaning is. If Boudreaux's supervisor, who I'm sure was busy, and thought he had communicated quite clearly, I mean, go clean the Pelicans, how much clearer did he need to be? There was even context for him. It's BP, there's a gazillion commercials showing the Pelicans got oil on them. I mean, what else would he need to do? Except to Boudreaux, cleaning the Pelicans was a whole other deal. And Boudreaux has context too. Boudreaux brings to that conversation the context he's lived his whole life. Someone tells him to go clean it, he does it, and then he thought he was showing initiative. You want rice? I mean, I'm going one step further. The idea here is that what George Bernard Shaw said is so true. The problem with communication is the illusion that it occurred. And so the first thing that you want to do, one of the first things that you want to do when you're trying to make sure that you're communicating correctly, is to make sure that you have context. The other thing you want to do is collaborate. If the supervisor had spent a few moments talking to Boudreaux and asking him, so where are you from? What did you do before you got here? And he found out that Boudreaux was a short-order cook or he cooked in a restaurant, he might have thought twice about what he told Boudreaux and at least asked him a couple more questions. See, communication not only requires context, it also requires collaboration. The more we talk, the more we dialogue, the more I understand where you're coming from and the context with which your communication is being offered, the easier it is for me to make sure that we all get it done and we're all on the same page. Leadership requires that you know the people you're talking to. Leadership requires that you collaborate with them and that you put them into some kind of context. Because you as the leader have to know that if this particular thing happens, then you can send this person, but you don't want to send the other person because they're short order cooks and they're not environmentalists. And you need to send the right person to do the right job. That's leadership. That's part of what leadership is about. It's part of what leadership means, is to be able to do that. The other thing is to have a concern. You need to be concerned about the person you're talking to. You need to be concerned about what they are concerned about. You need to know what they're concerned about. Knowing their concerns, knowing the context in which they're come, collaborating with them and getting an idea of what they're like, all contributes to a communication that will be heard, and instead of having the illusion of communication, you can have real communication. Real communication is something that's critical and important to our lives. You know, if you take me saying, boy, I'm going to kill you, in the right context, that's hilarious. In the wrong context, it's not funny at all. And so, all of us, if we're going to communicate, if we're going to be true leaders, we're going to have to look at communication and decide how our leadership style fits in with that and how we're going to communicate to different people. Now, I'm supposed to talk to about 8:15, so I need to move along here. But there's a couple of things that I want to cover. The next couple of questions: how important is it in today's society that our leaders of tomorrow be informed and engaged citizens? What leadership qualities aid in being a responsible citizen? What are the words of advice you would give? I want to tie those together. There is a speech given by Barbara Jordan that was given at the Democratic National Convention in 1976. If you really want to know a little bit about, in my opinion, Barack Obama's speech that catapulted him, that came at the convention many years later. If you go look at this speech, you will understand. But there are some things in this speech that I think speak directly to the point of how important is it in today's society that our leaders of tomorrow be informed and engaged citizens. See, excellent communication. I didn't have to say anything. Had context, there was a concern, and it was collaborative. She says, and now we must look, she's at the 1976 convention. She is the first African American to ever address a major convention anywhere in the country. She says, and now we must look to the future. Let us heed the voice of the people and recognize their common sense. If we do not, we ignore the common ties that bind all Americans. Many fear the future. Many are distrustful of their leaders and believe their voices are never heard. This is 1976. This isn't Tea Party 2010. This is 1976. To satisfy, many seek only to satisfy their private work wants, Wall Street, and to satisfy their private interests. But this is the great danger America faces, that we will cease to be one nation and become instead a collection of interest groups, city against suburb, region against region, individual against individual, each seeking to satisfy private wants. If that happens, who then will speak for America? Who then will speak for the common good? She then quotes a line from a Thomas Jefferson inaugural address. It was the first address by Thomas Jefferson. It was in the middle of his inaugural speech, and it says, "Let us restore to social intercourse that harmony and affection without which liberty and even life are but dreary things." I'm going to read it one more time because it's a critical thing. It says, let us restore to social intercourse, our interactions, that harmony and affection, the joy we have in actually talking and being and hanging out with each other and being collaborative with one another, without which liberty and even life are but dreary things. What good is it to have a country where you don't collaborate? What good is it to have a country where harmony and affection aren't in the social intercourse, the social day-to-day talking? By the way, and I don't mean to be rude, that word social intercourse means a wholly different thing then than it does now. It says, let us restore to social intercourse that harmony and affection without which. And so then she goes on and says, if we promise, a nation is formed by the willingness of each of us to share in the responsibility for upholding the common good. Our nation is invigorated when each of us are willing to participate in shaping the future of this nation. Let each person do his or her part. And I love this line. She says, if one citizen is unwilling to participate, all of us are going to suffer. For the American idea, though it is shared by all of us, is realized in each one of us. If we promise, we must produce. If we say to friends and neighbors, it is time for you to sacrifice, to be sacrificial, then we must sacrifice. If we say we must be first to give, then we must be. But let me go back to this line that I go to every time. It says, if one citizen is unwilling to participate, all of us are going to suffer. All of us are going to be worse off. Your vision, your voices, our victories. Your vision, your voices, our victories. That is America in a nutshell. That is leadership in a nutshell. I guarantee you that whatever problem you're trying to solve, that more people in the room, more often than not, though it seems that way, more voices at the table, more of your vision. If you bring your vision to the table, we have a better shot at solving the problem. I guarantee you that whatever vision it is you have, that we need that vision at the table. And I also guarantee you that if your vision isn't at the table, that even though we might get the problem solved, it won't be in the same way, because your vision is missing. Your vision is missing. You bring something to the table that no one else does. Your vision is something we need to hear. We may not agree with it. We may think it's a little wacky. We may think it's crazy. But we may, in fact, need it. Because let's face it, it's the wackiest ideas that often make a lot of sense. Flying a kite with a string attached to the ring. Mr. Watson, I need you. Was the phone really supposed to work? Did you really think that in even your time, you'd be able to talk on your phone with your significant other face-to-face on just a phone this size? That your whole world would be measured by the one phone? That even your notebook, which was supposed to be the lightest, fastest thing going, has now been replaced by this thing called an iPad? And most of what you do you realize that most of what you do on your phone is not talk, but text? Those are all somebody's vision of what ought to happen. Truly, Dick Tracy's not far off. You really can speak into your wristwatch and actually see the person and actually have the conversation. That's because somebody had a vision of what the world ought to be. And they voiced their vision. I don't care how big the vision is or how big or important things are, I guarantee you that if in fact you bring your voice and your vision to the table and you voice your vision, we are all better off as a society. Again, may not like it, may not hear it, but I may hear your vision no matter how strident it is. I may hear in your vision a pain, a need, something that I need to hear that it needs to be addressed. Your vision, your voices, our victories. See, when everybody's vision is at the table, when everybody's voice is heard, when everybody feels heard, doesn't matter. 9 times out of 10, when I go into a courtroom, it doesn't matter that the plaintiff wins. They just want to be heard. They want to be able to tell their story. I had a very interesting case in my court just the other day. I had a woman who was a hoarder. She did not think she was hoarding anything. She had two storage units full of stuff and a house that was completely full of things.